Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Blacksmith Furnace. Your boy Pete,
Man like Mo, heavy hitters, we
heavy
out here.
hitters
Yeah,
in the building. Robert couldn't
come
make
on,
it, but we're here, we're holding down the fort.
holding it down.
Um, yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Come on.
Sorry, shot for
So
shot.
sorry, shot for shot, 1-for-1. You got
And
you got
that's,
yours ready?
I do not actually.
Okay, let me drop my thing then.
uh,
Um, this is a personal reflection,
okay,
and I want to see if you agree with it or not.
okay.
Most Christians idolize wisdom.
Hmm. What do you mean by idolize?
We place a heavy emphasis on wisdom, um, unhealthily so.
Whose wisdom?
Even if it's godly wisdom.
Okay. Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I'd say most,
Yeah, it might not be most, but I
but I definitely
within
see
Christianity, I see an
that can be a problem.
idolatry of wisdom.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, almost as opposed to, I wonder as well if it's, yeah, no, because I think it's an age-old problem. I think you see it with even Joshua when
Mm.
the Gibeonites, is it Gibeonites? Oh, I
Yeah,
probably
their neighbors that
they were
came and
supposed
deceived
to,
them. Yeah,
yeah, the wisdom and the law was, if people come to you, you accept them, but what he should have done was consult.
yeah,
And I think we get into a habit of looking for solutions and systems and what's the last thing that worked, who was the last person that prayed that worked, let's go back to that, as opposed
yeah.
to what's God saying now. So I agree. I think
Okay,
that can be a problem.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I realized it, and I was wondering, am I just bugging? Am I just bugging out?
Mm. Mm.
Because I reflected and I was like, outside of Jesus, the wisest person in the Bible, his wisdom didn't save him.
Yeah. Because it was a wise move politically to take those wives.
Yes.
It was wise, yet they turned his heart.
Turn his heart. And even in terms of um the books that he wrote,
Mm.
Proverbs is optimistic
Mm.
in its dealings with wisdom. And then we move to Ecclesiastes, which
Mm.
is very cynical in its
Mm.
dealings with wisdom. And the balanced book of wisdom is Job.
Mm.
And that wisdom is birthed out of sorrow,
Mm.
is birthed out of this excruciating experience,
Yeah.
and is also birthed out of an experience of God after that excruciating experience.
Mm. Mm.
And so it's moved me into the space of no longer praying for wisdom,
Mm.
but praying for the sensitivity to God's spirit,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
however He's moving.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talk of Job, and even he beforehand was culprit of this as well,
Mm-hmm.
of putting out the sacrifices just in
Yes,
case after his
yes,
children would have a party, putting out sacrifice just in case, and
yeah.
God having to call him out on that
Mm-hmm.
self righteousness. That's you're following the system, but is that is that true relationship with me? Is that true listening for what I'm saying? So yeah, no, that's a good one actually.
Yeah, and coupled with Jesus
Mm,
as the um, wisest. I can't even say demigod because he's not. But
mm,
he's like, I only say what I
yeah,
hear the Father saying. and I only do what the Father tells me to say. And so even he doesn't attribute his wisdom to himself.
mm,
He almost attributes his wisdom to being a messenger
yeah,
of what
yeah,
he has heard. And it
yeah,
isn't a case of I have searched these things and I've found them out. No, I
mm,
have been told these things and I'm telling you.
yeah, yeah. Mm, that's a good one. And actually, if I can go off the back of that,
Yeah.
talking about sort of maybe some of our presumptions that our biblical presumptions, as it were. Um, I'm going to put this way intentionally. I'm being a little bit facetious with this, but even Jesus was tempted by virtue of his own lust.
Mm. I wouldn't call it lust
No,
though.
no, that's where I'm being facetious. That is definitely where I'm being facetious. Yeah. But it was for me, so again, putting out my entire theory here, it's this idea that our desires are what the enemy will use against us, and the
Facts.
temptations that Satan put Christ through after his
Hmm.
fasting, where, and this is where maybe I'm wrong, but I think directly linked to what Satan knew Christ was most desiring of.
I don't think you're wrong at all, mate. If you
Mm.
fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, it's safe
You're
to
gonna be
assume that
hungry.
you want money. You want hunger. No, I say you want money. You want food.
You want money too. No, that's
It's
Robert.
safe
That's
to
Robert.
assume that
Robert fasts and he wants money more than food.
it's safe to assume that you would turn these loaves of bread,
Mm.
these rocks into
Into
loaves of
lots of
bread.
bread. Mm.
So yeah, I think it's not it is safe to assume that.
Mm.
And bearing in mind Jesus's whole ministry was like it was through his obedience and his suffering that he was elevated into this higher space of glory
Mm.
where the whole earth is now redeemed through him. Um to almost for the devil to be like, let's take a shortcut.
Mm.
So firstly, obviously you don't want the bread. Okay, so you want to prove yourself to be
The son.
no. So the second one was
The
taken him to the
kingdoms.
temple,
Yeah.
and so the kingdoms, and so you're working for this glory. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, boom, I'll give it to you. Let's
Mm.
let's let's cut out everything else. You can
Mm.
have it right here. No, okay. So your greatest desire is to prove that you're the son of God. Okay, cool.
Mm.
Jump off then.
Yeah.
That will prove it. Again,
Mm.
no. And so it was very much tempting him at what the devil believed was
Mm.
his desire within that moment.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
yeah, I would agree. And I don't know if I am going to have an answer to this. And I
Mm.
don't know if I want an answer to this, but I've always wondered when it says the devil led him,
Mm.
does that mean that Jesus followed the devil?
Mm. Mm.
How did he lead him? Did he take him by the hand? Did he
Mm.
walk in front of him? How did he lead him? I've
Mm.
always wondered that. I've always read through it and I was like, how?
Mm. It'll be interesting to see if the word lead has different connotations because
Yeah.
I imagine there's lead as like, a commander in an army,
Hmm.
and there's lead as in Google Maps showing you this is where you go. I'm leading you to
Mm,
this particular location because I imagine if that's so, that lead is let me take you here and show you this thing, um, as opposed to the lead where there's some level of submission.
mm.
But it's interesting. That's an interesting question as well.
Yeah, I've always wondered how. I've
Yeah.
always wondered how because
Mm,
I think within the synoptics, it's got that understanding the devil led him to this
yeah.
place. I'm just
Mm,
like both the temple and to the rock. It was just like,
mm,
okay, was he just walking and then he ended up here, and it just so happened that the enemy tempted him there, but
mm,
it was recorded that the devil led him there with the intention of. So it's almost
mm,
like very coy in
mm,
its way, or very sly in its way of leadership. Um, I don't know, and
mm.
again, I don't know if I want to know. because that then
Yeah.
throws up questions to be like, yo, this is techie. But yeah, I've always wondered. I've always been like, how did the devil lead it?
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
listeners, if you have any ideas, any wild
Interesting to
goose
hear.
chases that you'd want to throw out there,
Yeah.
I'm definitely game to hear it.
Yeah. I definitely think, I mean, it was quite clearly strategic, and um, I think it was you to go and tempt someone at their weakest, which he
Yes,
clearly was after
yes,
40 days and 40 nights
yeah,
of fasting. And also the fact that all the temptations were, in my opinion, as you have said, things that Christ would have been desiring, for he came for the kingdoms.
yeah,
You know, interestingly enough, just before he went to fast, he had that experience after being baptized, where
yeah,
God explicitly says, "This, you are my son, whom I'm well pleased."
yeah,
But after that victory, how easy is it to you have that victory, you're at that peak, you're now fasting, you're hungry, you're tired, you're
yeah,
at that low. Strategically, that's the best place to hit you on that.
yeah,
You heard this, but look at where you are now. Are
yeah,
you really God's son?
yeah.
Like, as I guess maybe someone that likes strategy, I think it was the best time to do
It
it.
makes
And so
perfect sense.
when I hear, oh snap, Nat's listening. Oh, we are live. I thought no one was listening. Oh D, thank you for joining us, man.
Come
Yeah.
on, come
I
on.
didn't realize.
We got
I
our, we
thought no
got
one
our
saw.
first live listener. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess if you see that we're going live, then yeah, you can see it. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Anyway, yeah.
We can get
Um
some live. Hey, come on, live feedback, live questions.
Odie, if you have any any ideas on that, yeah.
Yeah,
But I definitely just saw it as that was a point of time for it. What's the devil got for you?
yeah,
And
yeah,
let me take you here and show you this thing that I can give you. Let me show you this, that, and let me challenge you on this. And you know, again, Christ being
yeah.
Christ was just cool with it. But yeah, anyway,
And I guess even in terms of because it starts off with the spirit led him into the wilderness to be
being
tempted,
tempted, exactly.
and so he may have submitted fully to that period of being tempted,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
in following, in doing
yeah,
whatever to be tempted fully,
yeah.
which is not something I would do. I'm just saying.
Mm,
Is
yeah,
I'm not I haven't got Jesus, and I haven't got I'm not, yeah, I'm not there.
yeah,
I'm not there. Um yeah. But
no.
yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if anyone's got any ideas, if
Mm.
anyone's read around it and stuff. But I've always been curious
It's
around.
interesting because I also imagine, actually, the Bible says that in every capacity we were tempted, Christ was tempted as well. So it's not
Yeah,
like that's the
yeah.
only temptation he had. There must
No,
have been, you can only imagine, there must have been the ladies that was like, Rabbi, 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 pray for me.
come
Lay
on. Hey, lay hands, lay hands.
hands. Just like, Peter, take that sword. Come on, cut.
Smite
Come on,
her.
cut. you know, um, Growing
Yeah,
up and everything. But yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the Pharisees in of themselves being a temptation, probably just
yeah.
doing all the most, and Anyway, yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a good question. Cool. Um, that's sorry, not sorry. Fairly
Mm,
quick one. I had two
for
topics
real.
that I wanted to talk
Okay,
about today.
we might have
Um,
time.
we might have time. Let's get into the first one. The first one I think is maybe less. It's not less spiritual. It's relevant. Um, we saw the pound literally go down to almost equal to the dollar after the mini
Yes,
budget.
yes.
Kwesi Kwarteng, it's mini budget.
Yeah, yeah. GH.
My mom was like, "Oh, they're only putting him there to take the fall."
The
Interestingly
conspiracy
enough,
theories.
after everything going on, I saw a clip today of Liz Truss being asked by a reporter, "Does she trust Kwesi Kwarteng and the Chancellor, with the aftermath of that mini budget?" And she couldn't say she trusts him. And you know how these reporters are, like they'll badger you, and you know how these politicians are. She will go roundabout and say
Yeah,
everything except what you want them to
yeah.
say. And she couldn't say that she trusted him, which I thought was really bad optics. And I thought my mom would see that and be like, I said it. They put a Ghanaian there just so that he can take the fall.
Yeah.
Um, But my question to you is that um, demonstration of leadership appropriate? That the prime minister, chancellor, they come up with this mini budget, whatever, and following a pretty bad response, she can't say she trusts him. What do you think of that as an example of leadership?
Um, I don't think is a good reflection on leadership at
Mm.
all. I don't think the entire political landscape is a good reflection on leadership. Um, and I
Oh,
think
these like Chrissy Carton's in the hot seat.
and I think um it's from the position of, if you as a leader place someone in a position of leadership, firstly there needs to be a level of credibility or certification or whatever that
Yeah.
has given you assurance that this person can do this.
Mm.
And then secondly, and this is just speaking from like leadership in general, as
Mm.
a, not just political, but secondly, having stuff in place to ensure this person's continual professional development.
Mm.
And so, if this person is in leadership and this person is making decisions that is questionable, as the leader who has placed this person in leadership, you should be able to pull him up. You
Mm.
should be able to sit down with him and to have this conversation with him. Now, if this person is making decisions on a public front on behalf of the organization, do you need to?
Time out.
No, it's
Someone's
all
at the
good.
door.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
someone's at the door. So I don't know
Let's
if I
pause
can
it.
pause this, but yeah,
Okay, let's keep it live. I'll wait.
yeah,
I'll turn off my camera.
cool. All right.
All right. D?
Sorry,
You
guys.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
OD. Sorry about that, guys.
All good.
Yeah, sorry. Seemed I think someone was lost, so hit the wrong doorbell because they're at the house now. Yeah. Anyway, um, yeah. Sorry. What were you saying? Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Being able
yeah,
to pull up someone that
being
you
able
have
to pull
put
them
in
up,
position.
being able to just work with them to correct and to correct their mistakes. And I think there is something about um a divided house will not stand.
Mm, mm,
Um, and it's interesting because I think it's Khalil Gibran that says a divided house is not a den of thieves, it's just a divided house.
mm,
Um, and so just because there is division within your house doesn't necessarily mean that your house is bad. It just reveals that there are cracks
mm,
and reveals that these cracks can be fixed. We can work around them. We
yeah,
need to come to the same accord, come to an
mm,
agreement. Um, so if this person is putting out a budget that you had no idea about, I don't believe that you had no idea about it.
Mm,
I believe that they would have floated it past you to some degree
mm,
before they put it out. And so
mm,
if they do put it out, then essentially it's got your cosign.
mm-hmm.
If it goes belly up, you can't just slide man by himself.
Yeah.
You can't do
Mm,
that because he's
yeah.
your man.
Mm,
You got to stand by him. Even
mm,
if it all flops, you got to stand by him because
sure.
it drifted past you. I trusted you in your decision. If it goes pear shaped, I'm still going to stand by you.
Mm,
I'm not going to leave you out on a lurch. And so for me, it betrays that leader's integrity
mm,
to almost push out the underlings whenever public opinion isn't favorable.
yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. So I think one of the books that I found has really um, shaped my idea of leadership is Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership.
Mm,
Jocko Willink is he's a former Navy SEAL, now I guess social media person. I don't know, um, but in extreme ownership, the idea essentially is if you're the leader, anything that happens under your watch is your fault. You own that completely, regardless of whether or not you are even directly responsible for it. If it happened on
facts.
your watch, you're responsible for it. You
Facts.
own it, and I think this is the exact opposite of that
Yeah.
because that mini budget doesn't come out without your sign off. Now, granted, maybe you're not the economic person, so maybe you don't have the expertise. Liz Truss, I don't know her background,
Mm,
but let's say, and this is, I think, this is a hallmark of a good leader is recognizing where you want the best person for the job and
mhm.
delegating it. So let's say she has no idea of finance or whatever, and this is presented to her, and it comes out, and this is the backlash. You still take ownership of that because you are
Facts.
the leader, you're the head.
Facts.
Um, and I think what she's ended up doing, in part, she was kind of goaded into it because the reporter was, you could see the reporter just wanted to get her to say, I
Mm,
do trust him so that he can write an article about how this was, following your trust, or I don't trust him so he can write an article about how the house is divided and there's no
yeah.
trust, So it's a catch 22, it's a lose lose for
Yeah.
her. But I think this then ends up making it such that the people under you, they they know that they're on their own if things go pear shaped.
It's each man for themselves.
Each man for themselves.
It's
They
each man for
know
themselves.
you haven't got them covered because even if so, in our house, for instance, to use a personal example, Anita is a pharmacist. Like she is a certified drug dealer.
Come
Why
on,
am I going to say I'm the head of the house, so I'm the one telling you what medicine to take?
bro.
Like,
You got
like
tonsillitis. You know what? Go sip on morphine. That will help you out. What?
we have a certified drug dealer in the house. This is her job. Like, so anything to do with medicine is, of course, Anita's wheelhouse. You know. Now, if she then makes a bad decision, I can't then say, "Well, that's your fault." That's
Fam.
still my fault because
Yeah.
I am the quote unquote head. I'm thing. I take ownership of that.
Yeah.
And then that means she has the freedom to know if something goes wrong, I've still got her back.
Yeah. And
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 I think
and
that's the
it,
burden of the leader.
I think it's right. There's a difference between um it's
Sorry,
almost like
just Nat just pointed out. Either way, they were efficient, but Liz knows that, and that's the career politicians. They know that she should have been prepared. So that's a good point. Yeah,
it's a case of like there's almost there's a difference between holding someone accountable
yeah,
and taking responsibility for it.
mm,
And so as a leader, I'll take responsibility, but I'll still hold you
mm,
accountable.
yeah,
And I think in the way that we hold people accountable then promotes growth.
yeah,
Where it's
exactly.
like, all right, cool. You prescribed the wrong medicine.
Mm,
Our daughter had a headache, but you gave her an injection. Like how did that happen? Like how did
mm,
we get here?
exactly. Yeah.
Um, and we then go, okay, cool. X led to Y, which led to Z. How do we circumvent this? How do we work around this? But I will take responsibility for whatever's happened, but I will still hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And so again, it comes back to the development of the leaders under you,
Yes. Yeah.
where you want them to grow, you want them to continually be able to work at their best. I think Simon Sinek mentioned leaders take all the blame, none of the credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it's very much like, yo, this is a good job. Yeah, that was my wife. Oh, this
Yeah.
flopped. Yeah, that was my fault.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Interestingly, there's another quote about how far humanity would be able to go if they didn't care about who got the credit.
bro, do you know what? Yeah, um, for all of my qualms with him, I think John MacArthur mentioned something
Hmm.
that had like got me. I was sitting there like, yo, you spoke straight to my soul. He said, if you truly desire the glory of God being seen, you don't care who it comes through.
Mm. 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 Yeah, that's a good one.
And that hit me.
Mm.
Because I'm seeing preachers, I was studying
Yeah.
theology, and I was just
Yeah.
like, bro, nah, boom,
Yeah.
and it's just like, is it God's glory that you seek or your own?
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 All of a sudden, that guy that maybe doesn't have the 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 seminary school thing,
Bro,
it's like, well, it's not about that.
it's not
If you're
about
not
that.
caring about God's glory,
It's
yeah,
not
that's
about
dope.
that.
That is, yeah. I don't agree with John MacArthur on a lot of things, but hey,
That cut me to the
yeah,
core because I was very heavy-handed them times. To a degree, I still am.
mm,
I hoped I've sobered up a bit, but I
mm,
was very heavy-handed. And
yeah,
I had to take a cold, hard look in the mirror and be like, yo, it's not God's glory you're after, bro.
yeah. That just points out God can use anyone. God can
Can,
literally use anyone.
bro, God used a donkey.
The thing is, after Shrek, I can't read that story without thinking it's Eddie Murphy's voice. Hey man, there's an angel right there.
That's banter. If God rebuked me through Eddie Murphy's voice, yeah.
I might not take it seriously, I swear.
Fam, do you know what it is? If a donkey started talking, I would have to take it. Eddie Murphy's voice,
That's
I
the
would
thing.
just be
That's
like,
the thing. Yeah.
you know what, God, I'm done. I'm going back home. Yeah, I'm just gonna go sleep. Um,
It's funny because that was essentially what God did with Christ picking up fishermen and tax collectors to be his disciples. Like I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this yesterday. That I imagine the Pharisees wouldn't have had such a problem with Christ if he was one of them.
yeah,
If he
yeah,
had come and been like,
yeah,
yo, you guys can see that I'm teaching. You guys can see I'm teaching with
bro.
authority. I'm going to join your ranks. I'm going to be at the top of your ranks. And you guys are going to be like, yeah, I'm the rabbi's rabbi. I think they would have been cool with that because
Yeah,
then they're part of the clique.
yeah. And
But
and it's even when he went back to Capernaum, they were like, but where did he get this from?
mm, mm,
And Jesus says it, Paul says it, where it's like, you lot, you lot idolize glory from each other.
yeah,
But when someone comes truly reflecting the Father, you lot can't clock it because
yeah,
it isn't
yeah,
from you, man.
yeah,
So yeah, you're right. Yeah.
mm,
So I think, the whole political landscape, as Nat mentioned, is a snake's pit. It
yeah,
is every man for themselves. And this is why you get them putting on companies that they've got shares in when we're in a global pandemic.
yeah, yeah,
So them men are eating off of it.
Yeah, someone said during the whole after the mini budget, someone said, "Oh, the energy companies are going to be toasting Liz and Quarting, at their annual dues because the bankers, now there's no cap on their bonuses." And I was like, you got to imagine you, and I mean, maybe to some extent maybe that's why American politics is a little bit it's not better by any
Mm,
measure, I don't think, but at least there's some transparency there. Like you
mm,
can follow the money, you can follow who's been lobbying. And in as much as it is legalized bribing, because the shell companies are backing this candidate, so this candidate's policies benefit the shell
yeah,
companies. But at least you can see,
to see
if
it,
that makes sense. Like here,
to
I
see
don't
it.
know who this is. My immediate
Yeah,
reaction was, "Oh, you're doing this for your pals," because this doesn't make sense in my
don't
head
make
that you
sense.
are
You men are
cutting
shaking hands
taxes
behind closed doors.
and saying it. So yeah, yeah, I understand the idea on paper. You cut taxes, people move there, businesses move there. America does that a lot. A lot of the
Mm,
states, I think, is it wherever Silicon Valley is, that's one of their whole things is you make it so easy for businesses to come and do business in your state, make it cheaper for businesses to do business in your state. It brings business to the state. Cool.
mm.
But this is clearly, it doesn't make sense. We are on the verge of a recession. We are energy crisis because of Ukraine and stuff. And you're like, yeah, cut taxes, remove the cap on bonuses. I don't see how that drives thingy, but
Because I guess if you're running business and you can slap bonuses on your
on
thing, then
yourself.
you're good.
Yeah,
But even yeah, even with the energy whole situation, like even that's the next conspiracy where man them are like the fuel prices in Europe hasn't risen equally as much as it's risen here.
yeah,
But
but we're on our
obviously
own.
we're all on our own now, so
On our own.
we're having to pay extra tax to get things from Europe.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, which is yeah, man. This Brexit thing, yeah, we shot ourselves in the foot,
yeah. Well, the old white people shot us in the foot.
bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what do you think though? The question back, your question back to you. I've forgotten the original question, but in terms of
Regarding this
leadership,
as an example of leadership, yeah, no.
yeah.
So I subscribe to the school of the extreme ownership thing. I think, yeah, as Nat even pointed out as well, this was they were fishing, but that's the political game. So you figure out,
Mm,
and to some extent, I guess she did figure out because she didn't say I don't trust him. She didn't say I do trust him. She just kept on talking about her talking points, and
yeah.
they all just divert and say yes, we are doing this and we're doing that. It's like no, that's not the question, but.
Bro,
I
yeah, no, go for it.
oh no,
Imagine.
sorry. I just think as the leader, you take that. You own that. So yes, the market didn't respond positively to what we're doing. Maybe we're reconsidering, maybe we're looking, maybe we are whatever. You don't put anyone under the bus
Bro.
because you're the face, you're the thing. And so that's where I come in. And that also points out we need spirit led leaders. We need spirit led leaders,
But
which
now I'm a bit I hear that from a Christian perspective, and I
mm,
can agree from a Christian perspective, but I can't agree from a democratic perspective
how so?
because if we say we want spirit led leaders, what spirit? Buddha,
No,
Muhammad.
Christ spirit. No,
But
God's spirit, Holy Spirit.
what I'm saying, what I'm saying is, this isn't a Christian nation. This isn't Israel. We
Yeah.
haven't all agreed to live under the same deity.
Mm, mm,
And so, if we're going to elevate one religion above the other,
mm,
that's just going to spark something that I don't. And this may be dipping into church and state territory,
yeah,
where
yeah.
should they be divided?
Mm,
If as a nation we haven't agreed to live under one, there isn't mutual consensus to live under one deity, then
mm,
I believe it should be divided. In as
yeah.
much as in the life of a believer, there is no division.
Mm, mm,
There isn't no any sacred and secular. But
yeah.
in the life of the state,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it isn't a democratic decision.
Yeah. That literally that matters. Like that's this next question. How practical would that be? Um, and I think so personally. I think that's where because
Nah, I'm loving this interaction.
I
I'm
know it's
really
dope.
enjoying
It's super dope. It's super dope. I'm like, oh, we should have just I should have just reached out and then see if he could join us. Well, yeah.
it.
Um,
Do you know? I feel like this even encourages others if they get the link to be able to just listen in and just drop
yeah.
stuff in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So that points out the Muslims have done it, and there are countries that you do have Muslim leadership.
yeah. Yes.
But then those are countries that are Muslim countries.
There are
Yeah.
Muslim countries, or there's a Muslim stronghold,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the Muslim agenda is strong arming the country,
Yeah. Yeah.
and people are either fighting against it or seeing it as oppressive.
Yeah.
And so in the spaces where we have, I think it's Iran right now,
Or
where
if they
people are
buy
taking
into
off
it.
their hijabs.
Yeah.
People are taking off their hijabs in protest. Women are taking off their hijabs in protest,
Mm,
and they are going through extreme
mm,
persecution because of that.
mm,
I'm not sure. I'm not as clued up on that as I could be,
mm,
to know if it's directly Islamic
mm.
against, or if it's just a cultural thing. But
I
yeah,
think the difference. Oh, sorry, sorry.
no, I was just gonna
Yeah,
say I do see from the Islamic perspective it almost being the nation is understood to be an Islamic nation, or there is an Islamic agenda which is then strong arming
mm.
the nation, which almost bolsters my argument in terms of let's not do this. It isn't. Yeah.
So the caveat or the way that I could almost see it working is, and I guess this isn't exclusive to Christianity, but Christianity is one of the religions where um your I don't want to say sovereignty, but your personal, like, it's your God-given right to deny his existence,
Mm,
if that makes sense. Like, God doesn't force it on anyone. And so I almost see it as a Christian leader could embody that and could do what's right for the majority in a democratic way, um, and not have to do it, not necessarily have to impose Christian values or beliefs on anyone. So, making legal marriage, or marriage in the legal sense, available to all
mm,
is cool. But then I think the spirit led leader would then know to also honor religious communities and say,
mm,
you guys can go and get married in the registry, you know, because we as a land and as a law, we have a law regarding marriage. You can benefit from
yeah,
that, but you can't then go and force a church, a, a mosque, a whatever, to do your marriage for your same-sex marriage for you,
yeah,
because that's against their beliefs. Do you get what I mean? And I
yeah,
think I
yeah,
think that could sit well with a spirit-led leader, you know.
yeah. I do see some challenges in that
Just
the
an example though, we have had this before, because Joseph was a not spirit it's spirit led. He was a God led leader in a
yeah,
secular
in a secular,
nation
yes,
in Egypt.
yes, yes, he was.
So there is
And
precedence.
there is precedence for it. He was given autonomy.
Yeah.
He was given autonomy. I don't believe our leaders have autonomy. Every
Not
decision,
individually. Yeah.
not individually, every
Yeah.
decision is almost sifted through a council, sifted
Yeah.
through a body. And so even if we do have a spirit-led leader,
Mm.
his constituent or his board or whatever they're called would equally have to be spirit-led.
Yeah.
And so
And
he
what
would
if they
have to
are?
be
So
strategic.
let's go down the idealistic route, the optimal, What if they
Yeah,
are?
if they are, then yo, it's gonna be a bittersweet time. And I say bittersweet because there is great opportunity for them to really hammer in and zoom in on legislation that will be honoring to how they believe God wants us to live. But equally, it leaves them open and it leaves the faith open to ridicule.
I don't think that's what they'd I don't think that I don't think that should be their focus.
Ridicule shouldn't be their focus.
No, no. So legislation that sort of um that sort of, I don't want to use the word push or back or whatever, but legislation that's in line with Christian beliefs for the
Oh no,
nation. I
yeah,
don't think,
nah, nah, not
yeah,
Christian beliefs. So I would almost say if your legislation is in line with the Ten Commandments, I don't believe that's Christian views.
okay.
So
That
there's a
was
moral
essentially Abraham Lincoln and them lot, their sort of
there's
idea.
there's like a moral code
Yeah.
as opposed to a faith code.
Mm.
And so
Even the moral code now is debated, though.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, even the moral code. I mean, if you well, yes, it is
Yeah.
because everyone's worshiping
There are,
trees and plants
yeah. Yeah.
and whatever. But
Yeah.
and if you're like, there's only one God we're gonna worship,
Yeah.
um, then yeah, this God best be this multi-ethnic, multi multi whatever, rainbow waving
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I think that there are ways, you can almost apply principles as
Mm.
opposed to copy and paste biblical
Yeah.
texts and justifications and stuff.
So that's also
Um,
point out that having a higher moral standard, as opposed to, yeah.
even
Mm.
even stuff like a modern version of the year of Jubilee would be very interesting to implement.
Mm.
Would be
But would it
very
make, because and that's the other thing is sometimes some of these like that doesn't make sense in a capitalist society.
and so the whole foundations would have to get torn up.
Yeah. Mm.
And because it's like if we did say um the government was like, we are going to place a heavy emphasis on the poor, on the
Mm-hmm.
widowed, on the orphans,
Yeah.
on like the lesser in the society, to
Mm.
ensure that there's provisions, to ensure that, so it's like there's going to be a budget towards shelter, there's going to be a budget
Yeah.
towards providing food, a
Yeah.
budget towards clothing the homeless and ensuring that all of these provisions are in place.
Mm-hmm.
um and that's going to be a very strategic thing. That's going to be a very intentional thing. We may not be able to house everyone. We may not be able to get everyone off of the streets, but there's going to be a concerted effort to at least provide them with their basic needs.
Mm.
Like stuff like these, where again, biblically, it's like we look after the and for the most part, all the Abrahamic faiths will be like, yes, let's do this.
Yeah.
There will be other faiths outside of it that will be like, yes, let's do this as well.
Yeah.
Um, and so that there will be things like this that can almost yeah, that can kind of play into it. So yeah, I don't think it would have to be quote unquote Christian.
Mm.
Um before you come into parliament, you need to get baptized. Like
No problem.
that would be mad. Yeah. Um and what I was gonna say as well is how amazing would it be to be in a party where you know that your leader has got your back even if you made a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in public, even when the journalists are trying to like dig your leader a grave and have them lay in it, he'll be like, yes, that's my brother and I
Yeah.
got his back.
Yeah.
He will lay in that grave happily.
Mm.
And then as soon as he come off the thing, he's calling you like, yo, you messed up. Come
Yeah.
sit down, let's talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not a case of he's just gonna lay in it and let it ride. No, he's pulling you up.
It's still going to
He's
help you
pulling,
grow,
yeah.
help you figure out what went wrong.
He's
I
like,
think
wait,
I think you'd fly. I think
bro.
people would fly because they know they're covered. You
Yes.
know, I think like and I think they would even be more motivated to work for you, if that makes sense, to do what you need them to do. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, man.
that's kind of mad.
If you feel we've done that question justice, can we jump into the second one?
What you said, Boris? Hmm. Yeah. The second one, I don't know if you have time for it, but I'd wanted to ask your opinion on uh, New Testament, modern day, 2022 demonic activity.
Oh, oh, we're,
Um,
we're stepping into the land of Harry Potter.
indeed, indeed. Platform what? 2 and 3/4?
9 3/4.
9 and 3/4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I think you don't hear you don't hear the mega churches. You don't hear the you don't. I have never seen a. I'm gonna call names. I've never seen a Joel Osteen, a Stephen Furtick, a even TD
Stephen
Jakes.
Firth. Yeah, 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 yeah,
I've never seen a Instagram clip of
yeah.
them talking about demonic activity from a
Mm-hmm.
biblical point of view. I've never seen
Mm-hmm.
them talk about demonic activity
Mm-hmm.
um, at all. Um,
Mm-hmm.
oh, so oh, D, savage with it. He's like, nah, it's happening. They wear suits now. The demons are in high places.
Bro, they are. They really are.
But it's almost like, apart from fear mongering amongst
Mm,
the charismatics, I
mm-hmm.
don't hear many sort of teachers talk about this.
Mm.
And I was wondering your thoughts on it. Is it we're in a different dispensation and thus demons aren't as active? Or maybe, as Odi said, they're wearing suits and they're sat in high places, they're high value
Mm.
men.
Come
Red
on.
pill.
Come on.
um or what's going on there? What do you think?
I think I think that having I've sat with this question like a fair amount,
Mm,
um, and I haven't drawn any concretes yet. But I think even in the Old Testament, even in the Old Testament, I feel like so. Firstly, I don't feel the charismatic church has got it right.
mm,
The ones that I've interacted with, I don't think they've got it right.
yeah.
And I think even Shailin draws in one of his songs, he draws a nice little line where he's like, we've got some churches screaming about the devil and making him the source of everything bad,
Mm,
overemphasizing the devil. And then we have another side of the church not even acknowledging the devil.
yeah.
And it's
Mm,
just like, no, God is love, love wins, everything is going to do what it needs to do
mm,
without recognizing that there is a middle ground, there is a tension between good and evil, there
mm,
is this this holy being, and then there is this being, this subsect who is almost trying to usurp this holy being.
mm.
Without recognizing that, again, Ambassador mentions, I'm quoting hip hop
Oh,
theologians.
those CHS, yeah.
He mentions that there's a three-man camaraderie where it's flesh, the world, and Satan
Mm,
that kind of come together to almost draw us down. It's
mm,
our innate fleshly desires, our weaknesses, and then it's all of that kind of spills out into the world
mm,
where there's this community of just broken people doing the madness. So it isn't just fighting against ourselves, we're fighting against the world, the
mm,
system, this stuff. And then we've got almost a puppeteer being the devil he's not necessarily he's working the systems, he's working and stuff, but he is almost whispering through our internal brokenness,
mm, mm,
um, which then fleshes out in these ways. And so when the Bible's like, um, God doesn't tempt us, we're tempted by our own evil desires,
yeah.
which the enemy capitalizes on. And so
Mm,
the enemy isn't so much so out there
mm,
as he is in here.
mm,
It is our own, and that's why there's this war, the spirit against the flesh internally.
mm,
Um, I do, I do recognize that the best way to oppose the devil is to is to be rooted in God. When the
Mm-hmm.
Bible says, "My people perish for a lack of knowledge," it isn't a lack of knowledge of the devil, but a lack of knowledge of the God they
Well,
serve.
mm,
Um, and so it is getting to know this God, being consumed by His love, consumed by His presence, consumed in worship, and then from that place being able to resist the devil. And
mm,
that resistance is real, knowing that he
mm,
will flee.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I do see that tension. In terms of demonic activity, um, I believe that, bro, it's rife, and right now things have just been so diluted
mm.
that we have we have Christian witches.
What?
That is such an oxymoron. We have Christian witches. I was reading this article, and this woman identified herself as a Christian witch, and I'm like, yay, I ain't what? A Christian witch? She's like, yeah, I believe. So essentially, what she's saying is she's like a Christian herbalist. She believes in the power of like the herbs and plants and
Mm,
blah blah blah.
okay, right.
But she, I
Or
I,
maybe
I
just
would
that madness.
I don't know if I would call that a witch.
Mm,
I don't know if I would call that a witch, but for you to be so brazen to
mm,
even call your blog post a Christian witch,
mm,
I was like, yo, it's
mm.
problematic.
It's funny because I actually know someone that back in uni used to be part of like the Christian group and all that, and has since gone on to become like a she brands herself like a yogi type guru type person, but she mixes Christianity with like horoscopes and reading the stars and tea leaves, and it's like this weird amalgamation of things that do not belong together.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and
so,
it's
so
that there is a but the interesting thing is, in this world that we're currently in, or in this culture, whatever, we don't need to be at that extreme to be amalgamating things that shouldn't be together.
true, true, true.
We don't need to be that extreme. Like sometimes we can amalgamate money and faith, prosperity
Mm,
gospel. Those two
yeah,
shouldn't be those
yeah,
two shouldn't be
yeah.
together. And
Right.
we may not be as far as the Joel Osteens or the Creflo Dollars or the whatever, but we've
Mm,
still amalgamated it to suit our palate.
yeah.
Be like, yeah, oh yeah, like man's not that deep in it, and then we're comparing ourselves to them.
Mm.
Or we may be um I don't know, a Christian mercenary.
Well, like Deadpool got saved. Yeah.
But so we amalgamate things that shouldn't always be together,
Yeah.
um, with and compare it to different things. And so I'm not just trying to demonize the Christian witches, but I'm just almost trying to put a caveat for everyone to examine our own hearts to be like, yo, what are we marrying with faith that may not necessarily go together?
Yeah.
Um, but going back to the Old Testament, I I came across something that was very fascinating.
Mm.
So Daniel,
Yeah.
who got thrown into the lions den and wasn't eaten and stuff.
Yeah.
Like Daniel fast, big boy thing. Like
Mm.
everyone, I know someone has said Daniel fast is not a fast. It's just a unique diet. So man, then don't say it's a Daniel fast because he didn't fast. He just had a special diet.
Borderline vegetarian or something. Yeah.
Yeah, like he was strict vegan because he didn't have
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he just vegetables. Um, but at his height, he was chief of the magicians.
Hmm.
And the magicians essentially were in witchcraft.
Yeah.
So, as a Hebrew serving the Lord of hosts, he had witches and warlocks under him.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, that is a very interesting position.
Mm.
Because if there was a modern day equivalent, I can almost guarantee you that every Pentecostal church leader
Mm,
will be at his house with anointing oil saying
mm,
he's backslidden.
mm,
Now, obviously, it was a political thing
mm.
where the nation would be taken over. He had no say, he had no whatever. But it doesn't deny the reality that God's hand was on him.
Yeah,
God led them to Babylon.
yeah.
God's hand was on him. God worked mightily through him to the point where I think it was Nebuchadnezzar started worshiping God
Mm,
and was all
mm.
even like his God is the real God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, and even in moving into the New Testament, when Paul goes to, I can't remember where he goes to, but there was this servant woman who was possessed by a spirit and she was a fortune teller.
Mm,
And so she would be telling people, oh, and like her masters made money off of her fortune,
yeah.
which again sheds light into all these tarot cards and blah, blah, blah.
Mm,
You
mm.
might need to be easy with that.
Yeah,
Because it was the spirit by which she was doing that.
yeah, yeah,
Now, this spirit rightly recognized the spirit that was in Paul
yeah.
and wasn't even saying, oh, no, don't listen to them. She
Mm-hmm.
was actually saying, these people are going to tell you what you need to hear
Yeah.
to be saved.
Mm,
Paul was like, I'm getting kind of frustrated.
yeah.
Spirit, leave.
Mm,
So up until then, Paul was tolerating that spirit.
mm. I guess the question is, was he aware of that spirit per se
I
until it started addressing him?
so from the passage it was like the spirit kept on speaking about them,
Yeah. Mm,
and then he got irritated. So it may
right.
have been during the course of a day. It may
Mm,
have been, it
mm.
may have been the course of a couple of hours, whatever.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But it was a case in which there was a perception of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
there was a recognition of that, but it became repetitive. And Paul was like, you know what, I'm tired, get out.
Mm,
Um, and so that there is this reality that firstly, in Christ, greater is he who is in us than he who is against us. And if I personally believe that if you're filled with the Holy Spirit, you can't be possessed by a demon.
mm,
The demon can influence other people to come try attack you and stuff and try to do whatever, but you can't be physically possessed or indwelt by if you're indwelt by the Holy Spirit. There's
mm,
no light and darkness can't dwell in the same
yeah.
space.
Mm,
But he can influence your fleshly desires to be able to do
mm,
stuff, which may come through temptations or whatever. But in terms of our cohabitation with them, we are called to clean our own house, the church, to ensure that each person is striving towards Christ. But outside of that, our jurisdiction almost ends. We are to preach the word of God,
mm,
and we are to, yes, we are called to like cast out demons and stuff. But I don't believe it come okay. Jesus didn't cast out every single demon.
mm,
Jesus didn't convert every single person.
mm,
Like, and so I believe that there are borders and boundaries to all that we are going to do, and it isn't a call to be callous or lackluster or whatever. Like, do everything to the best of your abilities that God has called you to do, but recognizing that in that there are still limitations. You won't
mm,
cover the entirety of the earth. Every Christian linking hands is not going to cover the entirety of the earth,
mm.
unfortunately. But we are to strive and walk with the fullness of what everything that God has put in us. I don't think I'm answering the question directly. I'm kind of
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I
throwing an
definitely,
idea.
I definitely agree with you in terms of if you are indwelt by the Holy Spirit, I don't believe you can be possessed
Mm,
because there's already a resident there, and it's a
mm,
resident who can't um, cohabit with a demon. In terms of if I'm to say your spirit has a physical space, the space is taken. You know. I do think people that aren't can be, but I don't
Yes,
think I
can be
don't.
possessed by demons. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
I don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know, can a mother, I probably can, a mother can probably, offer up her offspring to be possessed. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the details of it because I do think there has to be an agreement.
Mm,
I think that because it feels like if I look at the fact that the devil had to go before God to then tempt Job, and that the Spirit led Christ to be tempted and stuff like that, there seems to be a hierarchy of, again, not to use the word loosely, but man's apparent sovereignty over his spirits or over his
mm,
thing. So I think it feels like there needs to be an agreement or an acceptance of something, and I guess that's what filters into the creative space, and we see represented as contracts and stuff like that with demons. So I feel
yeah.
like there has to be that.
Yeah, I
um
agree. Just to
mm,
jump in, I agree with that. I do believe parents can
yeah.
almost offer their children as sacrifices
mm,
for things, for pleasures or whatever on their ends.
mm,
I don't then believe that the I believe that that's almost like murky waters where the the this is where almost like going back to like Nollywood films and stuff,
yeah,
there would almost
yeah,
be like a pursuit, a
yeah,
relentless pursuit of that person by
yeah,
the demonic forces
yeah,
because I now have a stake or a claim at your life because of what
yeah.
your
Your
parents
parents
did.
did. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but if that person is to go into Christ or whatever, that
Then that's
claim is
cut
now
off.
locked
Yeah,
off.
yeah. Because now you're
Yeah,
hidden in Christ. To use that preposition specifically. Um, and I think that's the whole thing. I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of our understandings and imaginations and visualizations of demonic activity has been influenced by media,
mm,
especially where we don't get it preached as often, except for fear mongering. We don't get it from the pulpit as often. Um, but I think the difference I would say is in the Old Testament, in terms of, for instance, I think the Prince of Persia, or like the territorial demon that was blocking
yeah,
blessings, and so Michael had to come and help the angel to deliver it, sort of thing. I think that might be different by virtue of the fact that we now have direct access to the
mm,
throne. We now
mhm,
have a language that the enemy can't comprehend in tongues. Again, whether or not your church believes in that is another thing, because
yeah,
we spoke of John MacArthur and he clearly doesn't.
nope,
Um, so there's that. But I think that ultimately what you mentioned about it ends up being a distraction almost, where we're called to do a very specific thing and deal with us. But we are also called to not be ignorant of the devil's schemes. And so
yes,
I think it's worth knowing, but the extent to which one should focus on those things, I think ends up being it's not that important if you are focused on God.
yeah,
The fight
yeah,
and the war isn't necessarily steady your enemy, it's steady your savior, it's steady his words, and those are what will keep you safe. So
yeah.
I say that to almost say, sometimes, especially in charismatic circles, it's so easy to blame the devil for everything and to cast and bind and do all of these things. And
Oh,
sometimes I'm like, is it really the devil stopping you getting married, or do you have an attitude problem?
bro,
Is it
bro.
really the devil stopping you from getting some work, or do you need to go and clean up your CV? Do you need to upskill? And it's not to under spiritualize or ignore
Yeah,
some of these things, but I think sometimes we are more guilty of over spiritualizing and removing the responsibility from ourselves and the power that grace gives us. and that our new identity gives us. We take that responsibility, or we ignore that responsibility, and then we put it on the devil, and then it's not
Yeah,
our problem because it's
it's
someone
not a problem.
else,
Yep.
and we can just pray and fast about it, which sometimes feels holier.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And it's a
that's what I
supernatural
was.
problem, so we don't need any practical solutions.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I heard one of my lecturers said something that I thought was so profound
Mm,
yet so simple. She was like, "Be as spiritual as you are practical."
mm,
So it's like if, and she used a very good example, just like if you're working somewhere and you feel as though there is a heavy demonic presence over that space, pray. By all means, pray. Pray diligently, pray hard, pray into it, see what God is saying, and do it. But even as you pray, look at your physical environment
mm,
to see if there is things in place physically that induce a low mood when you walk into the space.
mm,
Is there enough ventilation? Is there white light, or is it dim lights where there is enough ventilation and the lights are dim, so it's just this, like your energy just kind of seeps as you're walking
yeah,
through it? Is there like life around, like plants and blah blah blah, or is it
mm,
just this mold infested dingy little place where you just, are the rooms small? Do you feel claustrophobic? Like, explore the physical environment
mm,
to see if there can be small physical changes. Change the temperature of your light bulbs, introduce some plants, open
mm,
some windows,
mm,
get air conditioning, whatever,
yeah,
um, to change the physical environment to be more conducive to energy and life,
yeah,
even as you're praying.
yeah, mm,
And I was like, that is so simple yet so
mm,
effective.
yeah, yeah. And it's a recognition of one, not at the
Not at the expense of
expense
the other.
of
Yeah.
the other. Yeah.
Yeah, even as Jesus has said, like, to the Pharisees, um you squeeze you yeah, you, like, you do all of these things but you forget
Yeah, you pay your
righteousness. And
tithes and you do all of that, but you should have
he's
done
like,
that and you know,
Jesus, like, do that, but
yeah,
you're meant to be doing this as well.
yeah,
So yeah, it's yeah, so I'm just
yeah,
like, that for me was very much just like, okay,
yeah,
that was something I hadn't considered.
yeah. Yeah, nah, cool, cool. I don't think we've exhausted everything we can talk about there, but
Nah,
we have exhausted our time.
our time.
So let's jump onto the hookups and then
Yeah. Firstly, I want to
later on.
say, Nat, it was good having you along, man.
OD, yeah, thank you for joining us, man.
It was
That
good
was a
having you
very
along, man.
pleasant surprise.
It was
Yeah,
very good having you along. Obviously, we might not be giving out the YouTube link widely and that, but yeah,
yeah.
if you got the Zoom link, you might be able to drop a couple comments in the thing.
No, so if you are subscribed to my channel, because I use my channel to stream.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which
I use my
is
channel to
Ordinary
stream.
Amazing.
No,
Or
my
is it
personal one. I couldn't connect it to your
okay?
ordinary amazing. So it's Peter Finn. And so if you are subscribed to me, I think if I go live, you get a notification. And my presumption was just no one's watching, no one gets a notification. But OD did and joined, and so Nat, thank you so much. It's been crazy fun, just sort of interacting and
Yeah, yeah,
having
yeah,
your
yeah,
voice
yeah.
in. So thank you for joining us, man. That was dope. That was
It
dope.
was a pleasant surprise, man.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, hookups.
So I
I feel
still
like
got to
your
hook up my,
month should be, yeah. I feel like
yeah, I
your
still
month
got to
should
hook up
just
my
be.
thing, man. I'm sorry, people, I got to hook up my thing. So the exhibition that I've been talking about,
Yeah,
form the poetic form of nature exhibition, is up and running on my Instagram at the moment. H
yeah,
Muse H. Images are dropping every Tuesday and Thursday, so today's one's dropped. It's going to be running live for the whole month of August, and then there's another surprise at the end of the exhibition. So yeah, that's my hookup. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it if you're interacting with it. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna start pushing out a lot more bodies of work, so the Instagram is gonna be
Nice.
active from that front.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
Cool. Cool. My hookup is going to be, I guess, an update to a hookup I did recently. Um, so I now use two different apps to listen to podcasts. Um,
As you
there's
do,
one, sorry,
as you do.
as you do, yeah. There's one for podcasts that are more entertaining and that I'm just like listening to. That I know I won't make notes. So my sports podcasts I watch, I listen to a couple podcasts about the American Office, stuff like that. I listen on that podcast app. The other one is a podcast app that has a lot more functionality. So you're able to create little bookmarks and stuff, and it will transcribe it. And sort of,
Nice.
if you want to capture notes, like you're reading, you want to highlight something.
Mm.
Um, and that is the app called Sniped, SNIPD, and that I recommended recently, but I've gone in and discovered that it actually can connect to various other things. So I use a program called Notion for all of my project management and also for capturing little ideas. So if I see anything on Instagram that I find interesting, literally I'll be scrolling through Instagram. My algorithm obviously suggests like jujitsu players to me. So I'll see a demonstration of a move and I'll literally share it to Notion and it goes to a specific database. And so I've got a database of jiu-jitsu moves that I can always refer to and read and revise on. But yeah, so this app now has an integration with various note-taking apps, Notion being one of them, Readwise being one of them. And I noticed I connected to my Notion, and now literally whenever I make a bookmark, it gets sent to that database in my Notion, and so I now have a nice collection of bookmarks from my various podcasts. And you can also, when you create a bookmark, you can go in and give it maybe some context and stuff. So I'm going to recommend Sniped again for those that
That's dope.
like
So
learning from
like
podcasts.
the AI is able to distinguish like what category of um snippet this is and take it to the right
No, no,
subsection.
no, no. So I just have a like a database of for Sniped. So everything that I get from Sniped goes there. Um,
Okay.
but that what the AI does do is pick out the context for it. So you might hear a clip, you might hear a sentence and click it, and it will sort of try and figure out what's before that sentence is relevant to it and what after that
Mm.
sentence is relevant to it, and then creates that snip around it so you get a full piece of of a bookmark as it were. Um,
Nice.
and yeah, that just automatically gets synced to that database for me, and I've now got like a good database of all of the notes that I'm making from my podcast that I can reference, and it does that with the audio clip and then with whatever text as well is
Nice.
there. So
And this is cross-platform.
this is cross-platform and this is free. This is
I
completely
can hear
free.
footsteps upstairs. One of the kids just woke up.
Ah, cool. Again, I think that's our cue then to round up. Unless you have to just run off, and then I'll just sort of I'll close us
Cool.
off. But yeah, no, dope, completely dope, and thank you everyone that's listening. Again, OD, absolute flames that you're able to join us. You can find us on all podcasting apps. Uh, just search for the Blacksmith Furnace with as you spell blacksmiths with an apostrophe. Um, we are based on SoundCloud. That's soundcloud.com/the blacksmith furnace without an apostrophe. We now also upload our episodes to YouTube. So there will be a video version of this on the Ordinary Amazing channel. Um, it is streamed on my channel, on Peter Finn's channel, but we record it and put it up there as well. So you can find us there. You can contact us on Instagram at the Furnace UK, tbsfurnace at hotmail.com, .co.uk if you want to send us an email. And yeah, that's today in a can. So this will be the Blacksmith Furnace signing out. Peace.